In 1986, during cleanup operations at Chernobyl, workers known as liquidators were recorded in a deserted village. The scene shows one of them measuring radiation levels in the environment. During the winter of 1944 and 1945, children in The Hague, the Netherlands, were photographed receiving half a liter of supplemental food per day from the Interkerkelijk Bureau for Noodvoedselvoorziening and Kinderuitzending, about 17 U.S. fluid ounces. Children working in a mill, Macon, Georgia, 1909. This photograph by social reformer and photographer Louis Hine shows children working in a textile factory in Macon, Georgia, in 1909. Helicopters evacuating the wounded, Korean War, early 1950s. In the photo, a liaison helicopter lifts off above United States 1st Marine Division troops, positioned on a mountain slope. The photograph shows soldiers of the 31st Infantry Regiment landing at Incheon during the famous military operation led by United Nations forces in the Korean War. The Incheon landing in September 1950 was decisive, a surprise attack that turned the course of the war, allowing Seoul to be retaken and weakening enemy forces. In England, during the 1940s, children were photographed wearing protective masks. The image shows boys and girls walking together through city streets. The scene reflects precautionary measures taken during the Second World War. In 1954, a Tucker Snowcat vehicle was photographed crossing an ice crevasse during the Trans-Antarctic expedition. The scene shows the machine moving carefully over unstable terrain. The photograph shows part of an experiment in an urban setting. In 1956, researchers carried out tests of air pollution levels on volunteers. The image illustrates the methods used to understand the effects of smoke in large cities. During the 1930s, the headquarters of the fascist party led by Benito Mussolini in Italy was recorded. The building appears decorated with symbols and official elements of the time. The photograph preserves an example of political architecture that marked that historical period. British soldiers were photographed in Singapore after their release from captivity in 1945. The scene shows men gathered, still in recovery after a difficult period. The image conveys the importance of the moment for the transition at the end of the war. During June 1944, General Theodore Roosevelt Jr. was recorded in Normandy as the oldest officer present at that landing. The image shows him leaning on a cane while directing soldiers as they arrived at Utah Beach. During the 1930s, a photograph taken in Germany records civil authorities alongside members of the Catholic clergy. The group appears performing an official gesture characteristic of that period. A Montenegrin student was photographed in 1942, shortly before his execution during the occupation period in the Second World War. The scene shows the young man smiling at the camera, in an image that became widely known. In 1946, a hastily written message on a wall became known as part of a police investigation in the United States. The inscription made with lipstick, drew the attention of authorities and the press. At the start of the 20th century, some families chose to record the faces of loved ones through molds made of plaster. These pieces, known as memorial masks, preserved features in detailed forms. Robert Wadlow, at 17 years of age, was photographed in 1935 while being measured for a suit. At that moment, he already stood an impressive 2.51 meters tall, about 8 feet 3 inches. The image shows the adjustments needed to accommodate his exceptional measurements. In January 1911, during the British Antarctic expedition, a photograph was made of a cave formed in the ice. The scene shows the explorers facing a unique and striking landscape. A photograph recorded more than 100 years ago shows a rare traffic accident that occurred in the Netherlands. The setting presents damaged vehicles in the middle of a busy street. In the state of Oregon in 1902, a group of men was photographed posing on a huge log raft on the Columbia River. The image shows the impressive scale of the material gathered for transport. The scene reflects common practices of the logging industry in the early 20th century. In 1897, a photograph recorded a mother helping her son remove a tooth. The scene shows a common custom of the time, done at home in a simple way. The moment was preserved as part of family daily life. A 1934 photograph records the practice of X-ray examinations in Westminster, England, at a time when radiology was still expanding as a medical tool. Baseball players during the Spanish flu, 1918. The 1918 photograph shows baseball players wearing protective masks during a game, reflecting the impact of the influenza pandemic that swept the world that year. On May 8, 1945, an American soldier in Okinawa was photographed listening to the news of Germany's surrender. The scene shows the reaction of a fighter far from home facing a historic event. In South Africa, in the late 19th century, a baboon named Jack became known for assisting with tasks on the railway. The animal was trained to help an employee who had lost his legs in an accident. American soldiers returning home after World War II, 1945. The photograph shows United States service members arriving back in the country in late 1945 after the end of the war. Many of these men had spent years serving overseas, facing battles and long periods of separation from their families. Street scene on Pushkin Square, looking toward Tverskaya Street and the Kremlin. The image captures daily movement in Moscow around Pushkin Square, with a view toward busy Tverskaya Street, one of the main avenues of the Russian capital. A woman posing on Petrovka Street, Moscow. The photograph shows a young woman posing on Petrovka Street, one of Moscow's best-known roads, famous for its shops, cafes, and the urban bustle characteristic of the Russian capital. In 1952, there was a beauty contest called the Figure Contest. The participants wore papier-mâché masks. The goal was to make sure the judges focused only on physical form. Players from the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Chicago Blackhawks appear helping search for a lost contact lens. The item belonged to athlete Jack Evans. The scene shows a curious moment recorded during a hockey game. Native American telephone switchboard operator Helen of Many Glacier Hotel, June 26, 1925. In this photograph, we see a young Indigenous woman working as a switchboard operator at the historic Many Glacier Hotel, located in Glacier National Park, Montana, United States. Young woman posing on a balcony, Paris, early 1900s. A young woman poses on a Parisian balcony in the early 20th century, a period marked by elegance and the cultural flowering of the Belle Époque. In the 19th century, eating ice cream was already considered a luxury, and special utensils were created for it, known as ice cream spoons. They had distinctive shapes, often with handles crafted in silver or other fine metals, reflecting the refinement of the era. Babushka leaning out of a train window. The scene shows an elderly Russian woman, affectionately known as a babushka, leaning out of a train window. The simple gesture may have been a farewell, an attempt to see the station better, or just a spontaneous moment during the trip. In 1922, physicist Albert Einstein was photographed alongside a group of Native Americans in a rare and warm image. The meeting occurred during one of Einstein's trips across the United States, when he was already widely recognized for his theory of relativity. A striking photo shows an artist in the middle of a performance with a calm expression and steady posture. She delivers a unique presentation, showing her special skill before the audience. The scene conveys balance, confidence, and the artist's dedication to her craft. Sheila Gabelt was the professional responsible for performing action scenes in place of actress Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren is an Italian artist of great prominence in cinema. The image shows the importance of behind-the-scenes work that contributes to the success of productions. In 1839, Robert Cornelius remained for 15 minutes in front of a handmade camera built with opera glass and copper plates. The result was the portrait that became the first photographic self-portrait in history. Before the creation of radar, methods were developed to detect approaching airplanes. These systems used equipment that amplified sounds coming from the sky. The practice helped identify the arrival of aircraft in real time. In 1949, the cabaret artist was photographed in the neighborhood known as Greenwich Village in New York City. The image was made by photographer Peter Bash. The photograph shows a moment in the cultural life of the city at that time. This photo was taken at a school in Canada in 1927. It shows students gathered during everyday activities. The image represents a moment from the school environment of that time. A portrait made around 1900 shows Chief Etienne accompanied by Crom. In a formal pose, the photograph reveals details of garments and accessories characteristic of that period. Buffalo calf, Road Woman, a member of a Native American people, took part in battles known as the Indian Wars. She is remembered for having a leading role in one of the best-known conflicts of that period. The 1883 record presents the photographic file of Pete Spence, considered the only known image of this Old West figure. The photo shows the official portrait made by local authorities, preserved as a historical document. Around 1965, a photograph shows children wearing traditional Halloween costumes. The image highlights iconic masks that marked the 1960s. The scene reflects the growing popularity of the celebration in the United States. A Red Army soldier was photographed holding a kitten during the Second World War in the 1940s. The scene shows a tender moment amid a setting marked by challenges. The contrast between the military uniform and the small animal gives a human tone to the image. The Nintendo company still produced handmade playing cards in Japan in 1895, long before it became known worldwide for video games. The image shows workers dedicated to the manual process of printing and finishing. The winners of the contest, called Miss Correct Posture, posed with their trophies and x-rays in 1956. The scene shows smiling young women displaying not only the awards, but also exams that confirmed their posture. The fishing boat named New England was photographed in 1916 in the waters of British Columbia by Leon Crace and Frank. The vessel appears covered with fish after a successful journey at sea. An anatomy class was recorded in 1920 inside an educational institution. The image shows attentive students watching the teacher's demonstration. The environment preserves the formality, typical of study rooms in the early 20th century. Albert Einstein visited Lincoln University in the United States when he learned that the institution had been the first to offer undergraduate courses for black students. The scientist made a point of appearing in person and speaking with the students during the 1940s. Aerial view of flowers outside Buckingham Palace. The photograph shows the striking number of flowers left outside Buckingham Palace after the death of Princess Diana in 1997. Maori women were photographed in New Zealand during the early 20th century. The image shows traditional attire adorned with characteristic cultural patterns. Every detail of the clothing and accessories reflects the community's identity and values. The portrait of Hollow Horn Bear, a member of the Brule Native American people, was made in 1907. The photograph shows his serious expression and the traditional attire worn for the occasion. The image highlights the cultural importance and representation of indigenous leadership. A curious moment was recorded during the National Band Festival held at the Crystal Palace in 1923. The photograph shows a person peeking discreetly amid the event. The setting is marked by the grandeur of the structure and the festive atmosphere of the occasions. A cyclist was photographed in Beverly Hills, receiving a citation for riding an old penny-farthing bicycle in 1933. The scene shows the officer handing over the ticket while onlookers watch the situation. The wedding of General Tom Thumb, whose real name was Charles Stratton, to Lavinia Warren, was celebrated in 1863 and became one of the most talked about events of the time. In the 1860s, an indoor photograph shows various details of daily life. The image presents furniture, objects, and elements that made up everyday living. At the time, each item helps reconstruct families' routines from that period. A 1943 portrait shows a family gathered around the table during a meal. The moment reveals the daily custom of sharing dinner among parents and children. The scene highlights the importance of togetherness in the home. The practice of night fishing was recorded in Hawaii in 1948. The photograph shows fishers lighting the water to attract fish. The moment highlights a tradition that was part of the local way of life. During the first half of the 20th century, farmer A.L. Butts recorded the effects of a special fertilizer spread in his apple orchard. The scene shows the grove after the product's use, highlighting the tree's response. Actor Jeremy Corbyn was photographed during an appearance in London in the 1970s. The scene shows the moment of his arrival at the venue, surrounded by the urban atmosphere of the English capital. An original vehicle license plate was recorded in 1978, preserving the typical design of that period. The object shows numbers and letters embossed on a colored background. This style of manufacture was common in several countries at the end of the 1970s. In 1948, the McDonald brothers opened their first restaurant in the city of San Bernardino, California. The place would become the starting point for one of the world's best-known fast food chains. During the 1950s, a Coca-Cola machine offered bottles for only 6 cents. The equipment appears in a period image, drawing attention for its classic design. The scene shows how products were made available to the public in a practical way. A scene recorded in Paris in 1945 shows a woman walking with a baguette and 6 bottles of wine. Photographer Branson Decoux immortalized the moment right on a street in the French capital. A 1940 image shows a family preparing the Thanksgiving meal. The scene presents dishes being arranged and ingredients set out for the feast. The moment conveys the importance of the celebration as an American tradition. Elvis Presley was photographed at the International Hotel in Las Vegas in 1969. The scene shows the singer in one of the striking moments of his career. This image highlights his return to the stage phase after a period dedicated to films. In February 1987, host Fred Rogers gave a special performance in the hospital room of young Beth Usher in Baltimore, Maryland. The girl was hospitalized after a complex surgery and was receiving intensive medical care. A group of people was photographed enjoying the sun during June 1922. The scene shows men and women gathered in an open area, dressed according to the fashion of the time. The image conveys the simplicity of shared leisure moments. Artist Liza Minnelli was photographed during a moment of rest at the legendary Studio 54 in New York City in the 1970s. The image shows the star amid the sophisticated environment of the famous nightclub. Canadian model Mai Musk was photographed at the height of her youth during the 1960s. The portrait shows her elegance in poses that reflected the characteristic style of that period. The image became part of the building of her path in the fashion world. A man was photographed with his dog in a cabin located in the forests of Maine during the early 1900s. The scene shows the pair in a simple, rustic setting surrounded by nature. In 1885, a photograph recorded an ancient sculpture of the Mayan civilization found in the jungles of Honduras. The monument appears partially covered by the dense surrounding vegetation. The scene shows the contrast between ancestral art and the natural environment. A record from the early 20th century shows daily life in Whitby, England, preserved in a photograph. Residents appear in simple activities tied to local everyday life. The moment, which might have been forgotten, ended up being immortalized by the camera. A 1907 record shows the movement of traffic in the streets of New York City. The scene presents vehicles sharing space with pedestrians amid rapid urban growth. The contrast between carriages and the first automobiles draws attention in the photograph. A portrait made in 1902 shows a boy sitting on a rocking horse. The photograph preserves a childhood moment with a toy very popular. At the time, the setting conveys simplicity and details characteristic of the early 20th century. The woman portrayed in this photograph from 106 years ago appears wearing traditional clothing that indicated her marital status and social position. The attire revealed that she was married and belonged to Mongol nobility. Photographer Berenice Abbott recorded in 1948 a scene showing a woman working on the wiring of an IBM computer. The portrait reveals the backstage of technology at a time when equipment was enormous and full of cables. The chopper bicycle became an icon of youth transportation during the 1970s, marked by its bold and unmistakable design. The model had high handlebars, an elongated seat, and wider rear tires, features that gave it an appearance inspired by the customized motorcycles of the time. A 1955 photograph shows Jim Henson beside Kermit the Frog, a character that had just been created that year. Considered the starting point of one of the largest puppet franchises in global entertainment, the moment records the simplicity of the creation's early days. In the 1970s, a young Diana Spencer was photographed while playing tennis. The scene shows the future Princess of Wales in a moment of athletic leisure. The image reveals part of her simple routine before her public life became more prominent. Between the 1920s and 1930s, women's fashion was marked by modern-style dresses and the glamour of Hollywood. During the day, the main garments were still dresses, but not limited to that. Women also wore different combinations that reflected practicality and elegance. In 1877, a photograph shows the view of the main street in a territory known for the Old West way of life. The scene reveals simple wooden buildings. Along the way, people and horses appear, forming the typical movement of that era. In California during the 1910s, writer Jack London was photographed in his workspace. The scene shows the author focused on his writing. The image highlights the creative routine of one of the best-known names in American literature. In the United States, in 1998, Hillary Clinton was photographed during an address by her husband, Bill Clinton. The image shows the First Lady at the time listening closely to the official speech. A 1930 photograph shows the Statue of Liberty appearing close to a residential area. The scene gives the impression that the monument was literally in people's backyard. The image draws attention for the curious perspective it creates. A young man was photographed in 1909, removing a loaf of bread from the oven. The scene shows a common moment in food preparation of the time. The image was made simply, capturing everyday life. In that period, many families made their own bread at home or in community ovens. The bust of Nefertiti was discovered on December 6, 1912. The piece was found during excavations in Egypt. It became one of the best-known artifacts of antiquity. The bust is more than 3,000 years old and portrays Queen Nefertiti, wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten's,